The sound of the waves was calm, almost too calm. Ethan leaned back in his beach chair, sunglasses on, pretending the world behind him didn't exist. The phone on the small wooden table beside him buzzed again and again, but he didn't move. His mother's name flashed on the screen for the last time that night before the call went silent. He told himself he needed this break. She'll be fine. It's just another checkup, he muttered. He'd been running from guilt for years, from the tension that built every time he visited his parents' house. His mother's illness felt like a heavy shadow he couldn't carry anymore. When his friend Jake handed him another drink, Ethan forced a laugh. "You can't save everyone," Jake said. Ethan nodded, staring at the sunset, convincing himself it was true. But deep down, something in him knew, this wasn't peace, it was escape, and escape always comes with a price. That night, as fireworks lit up the tropical sky, a voicemail came in. He didn't check it. He didn't want to ruin his vacation. The next morning, his phone was full of missed calls. Unknown numbers. A message from his sister. "Ethan, she's gone. Mom's gone." He froze. The ocean breeze suddenly felt cold, hollow. He didn't cry. He just whispered one word, "No." He thought the guilt would fade with time. But he had no idea what waited for him when he finally came home. 3 days later, Ethan's plane touched down. The moment he stepped out into the chilly evening air, he felt the weight of the silence pressing against him, like the whole world was holding its breath. He drove through the small town he once called home, every streetlight flickering as if it too had aged in his absence. The streets were empty, and the familiar hum of his mother's neighborhood was gone. When he pulled into the driveway, he couldn't move. The house looked smaller, darker. The curtains were drawn, the garden overgrown. A single light flickered in the kitchen window, the same window where his mother used to wave when he came home from school. Only this time, no one was waving. He opened the front door, and the smell hit him, lavender and dust. Her scent, still lingering, still warm. His suitcase slipped from his hand and thudded onto the floor. The echo sounded too loud in a place that had forgotten laughter. Every step he took echoed through years of silence he had created himself. He walked into the living room. On the table was her Bible, open to a page he didn't remember. A photograph of him as a child rested beside it. His mother's handwriting scrawled across the page. "You always come back, my boy. Love finds its way home." His knees gave out. He sat on the cold floor, shaking. Every memory of her voice, her laughter, her forgiveness washed over him like a storm. But the tears didn't come, not yet. Guilt was heavier than grief. Then, from the corner of his eye, he noticed something on the couch. An envelope with his name on it, sealed neatly. The handwriting was hers. His fingers trembled as he reached for it. But before he could open it, the hallway light flickered. A faint knock came from the back door. Once. Twice. And Ethan realized, he wasn't alone in the house. The knock echoed again, soft, deliberate, almost human. Ethan froze, his breath shallow. For a moment, he wondered if grief had finally pushed him over the edge. But then it came again, louder this time. 3 short knocks. He turned toward the back door, the house creaking under his footsteps as he moved. The door's glass pane reflected his face, pale, hollow-eyed, and older than he remembered. Outside, only darkness. The porch light flickered twice, then died completely. Ethan opened the door a crack. The cold air slapped him across the face. No one was there. Only the wind moving the swing his mother had refused to take down for years. He shut the door, locking it tight, then turned his eyes to the envelope on the couch. His heart pounded as he slid his finger under the flap. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed and creased. Her handwriting filled the page, shaky but unmistakable. "My dearest Ethan. If you're reading this, it means you finally came home. I've waited for that knock on the door for so long. I know you needed space, but I prayed you'd come back before my time ran out. Don't blame yourself, I never did. But there is something you need to know before you lay me to rest properly. Look in the attic. Behind your father's old trunk. There's something I couldn't tell you while I was alive. Ethan's throat tightened. He looked toward the ceiling, where the attic door hid behind years of dust and memories. He hadn't been up there since he was a teenager. Then, another sound. This time not a knock. A slow, deliberate shuffle of footsteps above him. The attic. His blood ran cold. He grabbed the flashlight from the counter and aimed it upward. The beam shook in his trembling hand as he pulled down the creaking ladder. Dust fell from the ceiling like ash. He climbed, each step groaning beneath his weight. When his head finally rose above the attic floor, the light landed on something unexpected, an old photo album lying open. And next to it, something wrapped in cloth. It wasn't the object that made him gasp, it was the photograph. It wasn't just his mother and father in it. It was his mother, and a man he'd never seen before, holding him as a baby. Ethan's hand shook as the flashlight hovered over the photograph. His mother's smile in the picture was soft, familiar, but the man beside her wasn't his father. This stranger had one hand on her shoulder and the other cradling baby Ethan, as if claiming a family that wasn't his. Ethan blinked hard, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a friend, maybe a cousin, but deep down, he knew. Something about the way his mother leaned toward the man, not his father, told him the truth was darker. He picked up the cloth-wrapped bundle next to the photo. Inside was a small, locked tin box. His mother's handwriting again, for Ethan. When he's ready. The key was taped to the back of the photo. He sat there, legs trembling, and turned the key. The lock clicked open with a sound that felt heavier than any door he'd ever opened. Inside, there were more photos, letters, dates, documents. His mother's life, piece by piece, unfolding before him. And in the middle of it all, a birth certificate. His. The father's name was blank. A folded letter rested beneath it. He unfolded it carefully. Ethan. The truth will hurt, but you deserve to know. Your father was not the man you grew up calling Dad. The man in the picture saved us once, he kept us alive when no one else would. I was young, scared, and alone. I never meant to lie, only to protect you from a past that wasn't yours to carry. I hoped I could tell you myself one day, but maybe this way, you'll understand why I loved you enough to stay silent. The words blurred as his eyes filled with tears. His heart hammered in his chest, anger, betrayal, love, confusion, all fighting for air. He pressed the letter against his chest and whispered, "Mom, why didn't you just tell me?" Then the floor creaked, not from his own movement. A shadow shifted near the attic window. Ethan swung the flashlight toward it, but it was too late. The bulb flickered and went out, plunging him into darkness. From the silence, a man's voice, low, broken, whispered behind him. "She wanted me to tell you myself." Ethan froze. His body refused to move, every muscle locked tight as the voice echoed through the attic, quiet, raw, almost familiar. He turned slowly, the weak moonlight leaking through the window outlining the shape of a man standing in the corner. Broad shoulders, weathered hands, eyes that carried too many years of silence. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, his voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. The man stepped forward. "You already know," he said softly. "You've seen the picture." Ethan's breath hitched. "That's impossible. My father, he..." The man cut him off, shaking his head. "Your mother, she did what she thought was right. I left before you were born. Not because I didn't care. I was young, reckless. I made mistakes. When I came back, she'd already built a life, with him. And you were happy. I couldn't take that away." Ethan's chest tightened. The words stung more than he wanted to admit. "So you just watched from the shadows," he hissed. "You let her die thinking I hated her, and now you show up here, like some ghost?" The man's eyes glistened. "She called me, before she passed. Told me you'd come back someday. Told me to tell you the truth, and to forgive yourself." Ethan felt the attic spin around him. The memories he'd buried, every unanswered question, every time his mother looked at him like she was holding back something, it all clicked into place. "She loved you," the man whispered. "Both of us did, but she was scared you'd never forgive her." Ethan's fists trembled. He wanted to scream, to hit something, to undo the years that had been stolen from him. But instead, he sank to the floor. "She was the only one who never gave up on me," he muttered. The man knelt beside him, placing an old, trembling hand on his shoulder. "Then don't give up on her memory," he said. For a long time, neither spoke. The attic was silent again, except for the quiet sobs of a son who finally understood the truth, and the faint rustle of an old letter closing in the cold night air. When Ethan finally looked up, the man was gone. Only the photograph remained, swaying gently in the breeze. And on the back, in his mother's handwriting, "Love always finds its way home." The morning light crept through the cracks of the attic window, turning the dust into tiny floating stars. Ethan hadn't slept. He sat on the floor, the letter still open beside him, the photo resting on his lap. The stranger's words, "She called me before she passed," replayed over and over in his head. It didn't feel real. None of it did. His mother, the truth about his father, the years of silence, it was all too heavy to carry, yet somehow too sacred to let go. The air in the house still smelled faintly of her perfume, the kind she wore every Sunday morning before church. It lingered like a ghost, wrapping him in a warmth that hurt more than the cold. He stood slowly and looked around the attic. Old boxes, faded clothes, the weight of decades sealed in dust. He found a framed photo of his mother holding him as a child, same smile, same softness. He touched the glass gently and whispered, "You didn't have to protect me from love." Downstairs, the clock chimed. It was the same clock that used to drive him crazy as a teenager. Tick, tock. Now, every sound felt like her heartbeat echoing through the walls. He walked down the stairs, step by step, until he reached the living room. Sunlight poured through the curtains, landing on the coffee table, and on another envelope. He hadn't seen it before. It was newer, cleaner, as if someone had placed it there recently. His name was written on it. Not Ethan. Not son. Just, "My boy." His chest tightened as he unfolded the letter. "If you're reading this, you found the truth I couldn't tell you. I hope it didn't break you, I hope it set you free. Love isn't about keeping secrets or bloodlines. It's about showing up, even when it hurts. I don't want you to remember me for the lies I told, but for the love I tried to give every single day. Live, Ethan. Not out of guilt. But because I couldn't." Tears streamed down his face before he even realized he was crying. He folded the letter carefully, holding it to his chest like a prayer. For the first time in years, he didn't feel lost. He felt forgiven. The silence in the house wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing through the trees. It almost sounded like her voice, faint, soft, and full of love, whispering, "You finally came home." The next day, Ethan wandered through the house as if seeing it for the first time. The walls seemed smaller, the furniture older, but everything was drenched in memories. He traced his fingers along the faded wallpaper in the hallway, remembering how his mother used to mark his height every birthday. Each pencil line was a story, each mark a year she refused to let slip away. He paused at the kitchen door. The smell of stale coffee and lavender cleaner hung in the air. The same sunlight filtered through the lace curtains, painting the same golden pattern on the floor, except now, it felt different. This wasn't just his mother's home anymore. It was her legacy. He opened a cabinet and found her old recipe book, dog-eared, stained, pages sticking together from years of love and sugar. A photo fell out. It was of her and him at the lake, both laughing, her hair tangled in the wind. On the back, in her looping handwriting, it read, "Someday, you'll understand that love isn't perfect, but it's always worth it." Ethan leaned against the counter, eyes closed. He could almost hear her humming the tune she always sang while cooking, that old song about coming home again. For the first time, the sound didn't break him. It steadied him. He spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning. Not because he had to, but because it felt right, like honoring her in silence. He opened the windows, let the breeze in, and the house seemed to breathe again. By evening, the sun dipped low, casting long orange streaks through the living room. He sat in her armchair, the one she used to read in, and whispered, "You can rest now, Mom. I'm here." For a moment, he thought he saw her reflection in the window, smiling, proud, peaceful. Then the image faded, replaced by his own. But he didn't look broken anymore. He looked whole. He exhaled, letting go of the years of anger and guilt. The house, once a tomb of memories, now felt like home again. And outside, as dusk settled, a single bird sang on the windowsill, soft, steady, like a promise kept. Night fell softly over the small house. The air was still, carrying only the faint hum of crickets outside. Ethan sat by the fireplace, the glow flickering across his face as he read his mother's letter again and again. Every word felt heavier now, live, Ethan. Not out of guilt. But because I couldn't. He didn't notice the hours passing until the fire dimmed to embers. He reached for another log in the box beside the hearth, and that's when he saw it. A wooden panel, slightly loose, tucked behind the fireplace grate. It didn't look like part of the original frame. Curiosity took over. He pried it open gently, revealing a small tin box wrapped in an old blue handkerchief. His mother's perfume still clung faintly to the fabric. His hands trembled as he unwrapped it. Inside was a folded note, a photograph, and a small golden locket. The note was dated 6 months before her death. "If you find this, my boy, it means you're ready to forgive. Inside the locket is not money, not jewels, but a key to the one thing I hope you never forget, yourself." He opened the locket carefully. Inside, instead of a picture, there was a tiny key engraved with the initials EM. He frowned, Ethan Miller. His name. Underneath the locket, there was a deed. His mother had signed the house over to him a year before she died, but the bottom corner was stamped with one last message. Home isn't a place you inherit. It's one you return to. Ethan's chest tightened. She had known. She'd prepared for this, for him. All the resentment, all the distance, she had carried it in silence, trusting that someday, he would come back. He stood slowly, holding the key to his chest. He wasn't crying this time. His tears had already fallen, what remained now was something quieter, steadier, acceptance. He looked around the room, the golden light flickering against her photo on the mantel. "You kept your promise," he whispered. "You brought me home." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain and earth, cleansing, alive. And for the first time, Ethan smiled. Not the empty smile of someone trying to move on, but the peaceful smile of someone who finally had. When Ethan awoke the next morning, the house was filled with light, not the harsh, empty kind he'd grown used to, but something warmer, softer. It poured through the curtains, stretching across the floor like an invitation. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt rested. He brewed coffee the way his mother used to, strong, slightly bitter, with just a hint of honey. As the kettle whistled, he caught himself smiling at the sound. Every small detail, the chipped mug, the squeaky cupboard door, the smell of burnt toast, felt like a memory reborn. He stepped outside, mug in hand, and sat on the porch steps. The yard was still damp from the night's rain, the air fresh and sharp. The world seemed quieter, slower, as if pausing just for him. Across the lawn, the old oak tree swayed gently, the same one his mother used to tie ribbons on for good luck. Ethan took a deep breath. "You'd like this morning," he said softly, almost expecting her to answer. And in a way, she did, in the wind rustling the leaves, in the distant chirp of robins, in the golden light brushing his face. He reached into his pocket and took out the small golden locket. It felt lighter now. He turned it over in his hand, then stood and walked to the oak tree. Digging a small hollow at its base, he placed the locket inside and covered it gently with soil. "This is home now," he whispered. "And I'll keep it alive." As he stood there, the morning sun broke fully over the horizon, washing the world in gold. The grief that once choked him now felt like something else, gratitude, maybe. Or peace. He turned back toward the house, his house, and saw her silhouette for a moment in the window, smiling. It was only the light, he told himself. But deep down, he knew better. He wasn't haunted anymore. He was held. He closed the door behind him, poured another cup of coffee, and began to write, not about loss, but about love, memory, and forgiveness. Words his mother had left unwritten. For the first time since she'd gone, Ethan didn't feel alone. He felt home. Weeks passed, and life began to weave itself quietly back together. Ethan didn't rush it, he didn't fill the silence with noise or chase the emptiness away. Instead, he lived with it, like one learns to live with a scar, not forgetting it, but no longer letting it define them. Every morning, he opened the curtains wide and let the sunlight flood the room. He started fixing little things his mother never got around to, the creaky stair, the loose window latch, the porch light that hadn't worked in years. Each repair felt like a conversation with her, a way of saying, "I'm still listening." Sometimes neighbors stopped by, people who hadn't seen him in months. They'd talk about his mother, laugh about her stubbornness, her kindness, her way of making everyone feel seen. For the first time, those stories didn't sting. They warmed him. One evening, Ethan found himself sitting at her old piano. The keys were dusty, the sound uneven. Still, he pressed one, then another, until a familiar tune began to form. His mother's song. The one she hummed while cooking. The one she sang when life felt heavy. As he played, tears blurred his vision, but his hands didn't stop. The melody flowed, soft and steady, like it had been waiting for this moment. When he finished, the room was quiet, yet full. He looked around, at the framed photos, the glowing lamp, the faint smell of lavender still lingering. "You're here," he said softly. "You never really left, did you?" He walked outside to the oak tree. A small sprout had appeared where he buried the locket, a new life, fragile but determined. He knelt beside it, touched the fresh green leaves, and smiled. "Guess you kept one last promise," he whispered. The breeze stirred, wrapping gently around him, carrying the scent of rain and sunlight, her scent. As he stood, the horizon burned orange and gold. The world was still imperfect, still uncertain, but he finally understood, home wasn't walls or furniture or even memories. It was love. The kind that endures, even after goodbye. Ethan turned back toward the house, the piano's echo still in his ears, the sprout's promise in his heart. And for the first time since the funeral, he said it out loud, clear and certain. "I'm going to be okay." And somewhere, carried in the wind, a mother's voice seemed, "Sometimes life breaks us in ways we never expected." Ethan thought he could escape his pain, but some truths follow you home. Loss doesn't end when the tears stop, it changes you, piece by piece. And maybe, just maybe, that's how healing begins, not by forgetting, but by finally facing what we tried to run from. Ed to answer, I know.